Hello there. Welcome to the Joinery Business Podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Pauling. If you've been following our podcasts at all in the last month, you'll know that we're right in the middle of a financial sort of an upgrading your business and getting some certainty into your business and finding some hidden cash in your business. So we've done the first two episodes, and I'm taking a little bit of a break from the next two because I've had a couple of opportunities here to bring some amazing people into our podcast. So the next two episodes will start next week. So episode 3 and 4 about how to find hidden cash in your business. But this week I've got a really special guest that I'd like to introduce you to. His name is Darren McKavanagh, and he runs a business called The Kitchen Maker. Now, Darren and I have been sort of talking on social media and other platforms for a couple of years now, and kind of got to know each other a little bit through, you know what it's like when you're talking on text and chat and that sort of thing. And I'd always wanted to have a really good sit down talk with Darren. Darren's also been featured on a couple of other podcasts. One that I've seen is called the Site Shed. Really, really good, interesting podcast. So if you want to go and listen to Darren's first interview in a podcast in, I think it was 2018 on the Site Shed. It was a really interesting podcast, and he's just done another one. And I thought, you know what, it's about time we get him on our show as well. So kudos to the boys at the Site Shed for raising Darren's profile. They made Darren aware to me, and so we're going to talk to Darren today. Now, for those of you that don't know Darren, he runs a kitchen manufacturing business, and you'll know that I don't. We don't like to classify ourselves as tradies. We're manufacturers, and he's found a way to create a manufacturing business that gives him the things that he wants in life. And this is really what we should be doing with ourselves. You know, whether it's like in Darren's case, he really wanted to travel and see the world. So he wanted a business that would facilitate him being able to do that. And that's exactly what he's done. Or if we just have a business that we don't want to be embedded in all the time, so you feel the weight of that business on your shoulders every single day, you probably don't want that either. So whether you go out and travel the world, or whether you just spend time with your family, your friends, or with yourself, it probably doesn't really matter which one of those you choose, but we should be able to create a business that gives you that option. And it's quite interesting because Darren has been able to achieve this in his life just simply by saying, this is what I want to do. He set out to do it, and it's actually happened for him. And I'm not saying it's simple, but it's as simple as setting out that goal and actually achieving it. So I think you'll find this podcast really quite interesting. So many people in our industry, being the joinery manufacturing industry, say that they want to achieve this in their business, but really never do. You know, we feel that the burden of the business weighs on our shoulders the whole time we own and run the business. That's not to say that Darren doesn't feel the burden of the business, but he has found a way to get out from underneath it so that he's helping to improve it. So I think you'll really like this interview. Without any further ado, I'll jump into it. And if you really like what you're seeing here and you want to learn more, jump into our Facebook group, the Joinery Business Hub, free Facebook group. You'll just be asked to answer 3 questions. They're just the typical entry questions we require everybody to answer. They're not skill testing in any way, just answer the questions and we'll let you in. And we can have a chat about this podcast in the hub. So without any further ado, let's jump in and listen to Darren, and we'll talk to you on the other side. Cheers. Welcome everyone to the Joinery Business Podcast. I'm just really, really, really stoked for today's podcast because I've got an opportunity to talk to someone face-to-face that I haven't talked to face-to-face, but we've chatted quite a bit over the years. Darren McKavanagh from The Kitchen Maker is on our podcast today. So I'd like to welcome Darren to the podcast.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, good to see you.
Good. I've been following you for a while too, so it's good to hear what other people are doing in the industry. Yeah, it's good to meet up. So you've done some amazing things, and I know a lot of people in our group is really going to they're really going to like what you have to say, because the journey that you've been on in your business is really quite amazing. I'm just going to share my screen so I can take some notes while you talk, if that's all right. Yeah, it's fine. Now,
I know that you have other interests outside of the business, which is really cool.
Yeah, 2 of those are skiing and sailing are the main ones. So, yeah. Yeah, you got a couple of pictures there.
Yeah, so you've got your interest is not just in the joinery industry, right? You've got quite a few outside interests. So tell us a little bit about what drives you? What is it that that really gets you up and out of bed in the morning?
Oh, well, the big thing is I must admit, from when I first left school till I was like 25, all I did was work. And then I got, when I was a kid, I sailed a lot competitively.
Oh, I
And
see.
when I was 25, I got dragged back into sailing, and that was a really good break from work as well.
Yeah.
And then I did work, don't get me wrong, I worked a hell of a lot too, right through to, I worked a lot, but I also did a lot of sailing in the 18 footers in Sydney. And from there, I started my own business after a year off traveling, and been involved in my parents' business. They've been a huge part of me, and they still, my parents both work for me part-time now, which is fantastic.
So it's all in the family still. That's good.
Yeah, I started my own business separate to them. We shared the same factory for about 5 years, but I only had a very small space there. I had a mezzanine floor that was 40 square meters, and one apprentice who I'm still lucky, he still works for me today.
Yep.
And he's in his 16th and a half year. But yeah, we basically just manufactured everything there and, shipped it out. But it was too small space, and I really wanted to do my own thing.
Right.
Dad just did the cut to size and part of the business. He didn't, and manufactured a few cabinets ready made up. But I wanted to do the full joinery thing. I just found it a bit more interesting. Cool. And not so monotonous. But yeah, and then what I really started off when I was 28, and now I'm 44, nearly 45.
Yeah, so 20 years at it now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So let's be really clear. You have you've got two businesses. I understand it. You've got the kitchen maker, and you've got a 2-pack paint business as well.
Yeah, that's called Total Polyurethane.
Yep.
So I've got a partner in that business, and we paint for about myself and about 8 to 10 other local companies, and a few small builders and a few one-off jobs as well.
Cool.
But that's been really good. I've got to know other people in the industry as well, and I don't have a lot to do with the day-to-day running of it, but I've learned a lot about just basic manufacturing, because it's quite an easy process. I mean, it's not hard. Sorry, it's hard to put the paint on, but it's hard to do it efficiently and get the guys doing it. And it's hard, like, it looks very easy, but it's hard to get right.
Yes.
If you know what I'm saying. Like, there's so many little things, like the first spray booth we had. I bought it off there was a panel beater in my factory, and he moved out. And that's when I decided to kick it off. And the spray booth wasn't good enough for painting polyurethane. We just couldn't get a good finish out of it.
Yeah.
So of course we had to buy another booth. We bought another second-hand one, a cheaper one, but it was very good quality. And even though it was older, and we're still using that every day to this day. And we've been going 5.5 years in the spray painting.
Yeah. So you've had quite the journey, hey, over 20 years.
Yeah, the spray painting's been probably one of the tougher things I've done. It's just, I'm not in there every day, and I have never been in there every day, and which in the next few months I plan to spend. I'd like to just work for a week in there, just so I can nut out a bit more and see if we can get a few more efficiencies and things like that.
So let's go back in time a little bit here, hey? When did you first start in business? What year was that?
Oh, when I was 28, I'm 44 now. So 2020. Doing my maths here. I haven't got a calculator in front of me. How are you going? So, about 17 years ago. Okay. So 2000, 3. What I did is I had a year off when I was sort of 27, 28. Yep. I worked for myself 3 months before I went away, and I decided to go traveling for a year before I did my own thing. And as soon as the day I got home was on a Sunday, and I started working myself on the Monday afternoon. I went and looked after my parents' business because they were away on their wedding anniversary. Mm-hmm. And then the day after I got that same afternoon, I went and looked at a job at Avalon in Sydney. It was for one of Sydney's top naval architects. That was a sailing connection. And I did her kitchen that I must have done nearly every mother in the childcare centre's kitchen where her kids went to, because I got so much work off that one job.
So in 2003, 2002, and about that period of time there, you got one job and it just exploded into so many others, yeah?
Yeah, exactly right. Actually, my sport has had a lot to do with the the sailings had a lot to do with my clientele. Like even I can just sitting here now, I could count 5 jobs off the top of my head that I've got in different stages at the moment from my sailing connections, which is, fantastic.
So do you think it's fair to say that your passion is not only for the business, but it's kind of driven by the other things in your life that you like to try and support and continue to do?
Oh, for sure. Like without the business, I wouldn't be able to sail. I wouldn't be able to snow ski, and it's been fantastic. In the last 2.5 years, I've spent, 9 months skiing and 7 months sailing.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second, because that's kind of that's the juicy part of this conversation. I'd like to just make sure that everybody's got a really good background, because I think that you're one of those unique people in this industry that everybody says you can't do that. That'll never happen. You're doing all those sort of things that a lot of people say can't be done or impossible. So it's such an inspirational story.
Thank you.
If you're to sort of sum it up, what do you think the business has given you? Like how do you sort of look at it because there's so many people in this industry that just work 80 hours a week and they don't really feel like the business is giving them anything apart from paying their bills, right? So what do you feel like the business is actually giving you after 20 years?
That's a really good question. It's given me like heaps of satisfaction. It's given me a good lifestyle. I've met heaps of great people. I've learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about other people as well.
Yep.
But I mean, it's a hard road, as everyone knows. It's not easy, but I mean, it's like part of the reason why I can leave my business and do those other things is because you trust other people. So it has given me trust in other people as well. And also setting expectations. If you don't set expectations for anything in life, like it might be, I have the expectation that I want to go and spend a few months skiing every year. If I never set that expectation, the business has allowed me to do that. Yeah. But if I didn't set that expectation, I would have never got there either.
Yeah.
But it's given me a fantastic lifestyle. I've learned so much. It's been very rewarding. It's got its good and bad parts too.
Yeah,
like anything.
Nothing's perfect, is it?
No, nothing's perfect. And, I don't, continual learning is one big thing too. That it's definitely, I skimmed back over the Toyota theory this morning because, I think it's such a good theory. And I actually wrote out some of the points and gave it to one of my boys and put it on his desk.
Right.
So, because it's just, it's, but the whole experience of the business, I wouldn't swap for anything.
Yeah. So. Toyota is an interesting company. They've perfected lean, but we've been delivering lean for close to 20 years now, and it can't be like Toyota did it because, you know what I mean? There's a very different culture from what Toyota believes and what the joinery industry actually will do. So,
for sure. But that's the same with not every bit of advice you get is good. I've had the same.
That's true.
I've had a financial business coach, I would call him, more than because he's very good with the numbers, but he doesn't know that much about joinery.
Yes.
And he's been fantastic, but I still believe if I listened to everything he said, I've learned so much incredible amounts of him, but if I listened to everything he said, it wouldn't have worked for my particular business.
Yeah. And accountants are kind of like that. I've learned that over the years too, that if I was to listen to my accountant, when I had my joinery business, we'd go to Bill and say, okay, we're not doing so well this month. What do you do? And he'd say, put your price up. Okay. Well, that's not really going to cut it. Because that's the extent of his knowledge, really.
We're at the stage now, especially with this situation in the world of COVID, we can't charge anymore at the moment, but can we get better? Of course we can.
It's an interesting conversation, really, because how much you can charge is where people place your value at. What you can do is you can raise your value and, in the eyes of your customers. But you're right. I think if you're looking for business advice, don't go to an accountant. Go to an accountant for accounting advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's more like a financial, just looks, helps us analyze the numbers and stuff like that. But and I definitely wouldn't have got to where I am without him, and I thank him immensely. But whether it's, there's always new things to learn as well.
Yeah. And it is kind of over the years, you gather this information from people that have given you things that you need, right? And I don't know, if you're like me at all, it's always kind of what you need right now is kind of what you're looking for, right?
That is definitely true. Like, I suppose when I stumbled across him, we were doing quite well, but I didn't know which areas we were doing good in.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I had my own factory, we were doing quite well, but we just didn't have enough. We needed guidance on numbers then. And now that's probably sorted. I, could maybe move on to something else.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It is interesting. One of our previous podcasts, I think 2 or 3 podcasts ago, I did a little episode on how to break down your numbers. And it was amazing the response we got from that, even from people that are in businesses that are the bookkeeper in the business. Just a simple thing like breaking out your wages, for your manufacturing separate so that you can run that as a ratio against revenue. Being able to have that as a number that you look at is really important. It's an efficiency number for your factory, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. We have in our P&L, we definitely have admin and management, and then we have factory separate.
Yeah, it has to be because that's part of your cost of goods sold.
For sure.
Excellent. So as you are right now, you've gone doing this for 20 years, roughly. You've learned a lot. The cool thing about you that I can see is that you're not afraid to apply things. Like you're not afraid to have a go, knowing full well from what you've told me that it's not always going to work perfectly, but at least you'll have a go at it.
Definitely not. It's a bit like sailing. It's not always smooth. Like the first time I spent 9 months away, the first time I went away, and the boys did a fantastic job. But I came back and said to my manager, I walked in the door and said the first day I came back, and I said, "Oh mate, you've done such a good job." He said, "Oh, it wasn't only that." He said it was the 7 years we spent because he'd been with me 7 years at that stage, obviously. We'd been building the systems, and I'd started before he'd come here, but he helped me implement them, and that was a big thing. We've documented everything. We have a system how to add a new job into the computer. We have a system, how to check off the hardware.
Yeah.
We have systems for installing, go to someone's house, take photos when you walk in so we can't get blamed for damaging something.
Nice.
Or, just little things like that. We've got little bits like that everywhere, and that's been a huge part of, how we can grow a little bit as well. Like we're not massive. We turn over 2.8 to 3 million every year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll give a bit of differentiation to my workshop. I probably have all my equipment, including 4 cars, a forklift, a panel saw, an edge bander. All the stuff would be valued at $80,000 to $100,000, maybe.
Yep.
We outsource a lot of that stuff to keep the overheads low. Like we outsource all the cutting and edging, because I claim for our turnover, we wouldn't have enough to have a CNC router running at least, 30 to 40 hours a week, which we wouldn't.
Yep.
So I believe that's one of our efficiencies is we keep it low. And we've got guys who come and work here. The factory's really clean and dust free because there's no machinery going. Not saying that you can't have a clean and dust free factory, but it's quiet is one of the big things.
Yeah, so you've set up an intentional strategy to go that direction, and that's probably one of the biggest messages is no strategy is wrong, but you have to have a strategy, right? You've got to have something that you've said, right, I'm going to outsource or I'm going to go internal, or some people go from outsourcing back to internally making things. So it's I think that's what you're saying exactly. As long as you like the numbers stack up, whichever way works best. Like my strategy might not work for the guy down the road because he's different mindsets as well. But for us, it works really well, and I think it's I know it's part of our success. I mean, I got that because my father ran a cut to size business, so he was big on what does everyone want to have a whole lot of machines when they only use them 2 days a week. Yeah,
and I think that's a big thing. Saying that, we do get extremely well looked after by suppliers, but that's, I suppose, we've got good cash flow and we always pay them on time. Try never to be a day late.
Well, it's an interesting topic because we often, take a new client on board and just say, okay, well, how much money do you have invested in your machinery? Sometimes it's $1 million or more. And then we just say, okay, how often is that machinery running? Often 50% of the time. Well, your investment is only going to return 50% because how could an investment not if it's idle 50% of the time? So you're right. If you don't have that machinery producing for you, your actual return on your investment is not going to come in because how can it? It's sitting idle. So
yeah, I'm a big believer in that. It's been on the couple of Facebook pages, it's been a huge topic of discussion. Everyone says, "Oh, what sort of CNC will buy?" And my first reply is, "How much are you going to use it?" They're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "How much are you going to use it?" Because if you're only going to use it 1 or 2 days a week, it's outsource it. Get a good drawing package, because you've got to have a good drawing package to be able to use a CNC effectively anyway. So
it certainly can work for sure. There's no right or wrong strategy. It's just getting committed to the strategy and making it work for sure. That's the big deal, I think. So what do you feel now, like at this point in business, you've been going for 20 years. What do you feel now that you can actually give back yourself? Because, we go through, humans, I believe, are kind of the same, right? We go through a period where we have to give. We can only give for so long. And then if you're not getting back, then, you get a little bit tired. But you're at a stage where the business is actually giving you back. What are you now able to give back to, whatever it is? What do you feel, in life that you've been able to sort of help?
Like me, I've been able to step away from the business so much. Like in the last 3 years, I've spent more time traveling and, doing things I love than actually full time in the business, which has been fantastic. Yeah. When I'm away, I work about 4 hours a week. I check the financials a little bit. Last time, actually, correction on that. The first 2 times I went away, I worked about 4 hours a week. The third time I went, I try to do a little bit more, up to about 8, maybe 12 hours a week sometimes, just do a little bit of estimating. That was trying to take a bit of pressure off the boys.
Yep.
But yeah, doing something like that, much more than that when you're away, I don't believe is you get too locked into it again. Yeah. But being able to take time away, have choices, a bit of financial freedom as well.
Yeah.
One thing the business has helped me buy is a bit of property too. So I own the factory where I'm in, and then I've got a couple I rent out as well. So that's been, the old rich dad, poor dad theory of make money in business and store it in property. I bought this building on vendor finance. The old owner, no one would lend me the money, so I said to the old owner, would he lend me the money? He said, yeah, no problem. When I bought it 47 years ago,
wow.
He said the old owner did the same thing for me, and we came up with a deal, and I borrowed the money off him for 10 years.
Fantastic. I'm willing to bet, though, if you're like most people in your position, and I don't meet many, but we do want many to be in your position. And that's part of our purpose, right, is to help people get to achieve some of the things that you have. But when I do talk to people that have achieved what you've achieved, quite often they say, because I don't feel like I'm embedded in the business so much anymore. Like when you're an owner and you're working in the business, whether it's on the tools or whether it's on the drawing or whatever it is, you often feel like you don't have time to give back to the people in the business to actually coach them to be better humans or to be better people or even just better staff members. I'm willing to bet that you probably now feel like you can actually devote some quality time to the people in your business because you're at that level of working on it, not in it.
What I'm actually going to do in 2 weeks' time, in a week's time, I've got a new guy starting. In 2 or 3 weeks after that, I'm going out and I'm going to do a full install with a new guy because I want to set him up so that he learns right from the start the way we do stuff. I mean, I wouldn't say that 2 of my best employees are guys that did their apprenticeship with me.
Right.
One's been here 12 years and one's been here, 16 and a half years. And David, my manager's been here 10 years and he definitely helped train them as well. But I'll tell you, I haven't finished an apprentice since I got off the tools, which is something that I'm trying to work on doing.
Yep.
So they're the first 2 apprentices I've had and the only ones that have stayed right through their trade, which is not a good record for something that's probably the worst thing that I could say I'm not proud of in far as business. I haven't been able to finish more apprentices because to me, it's like giving back to the industry. Someone taught you, so you should teach someone else and they should teach someone else, etc.
Yep.
But I'm really enjoying spending time training the staff, which is, and taking time out to, read books and do my own education so you can make more educated decisions in business as well. I think huge. And that's one thing, going away and coming back into it. I've changed some way we do a few things on the floor and it's starting to work really well. It's only been a month or two, and the boys love it too. At first, a couple of them were a bit skeptical, but now they're like, "Yep, it's good." And one of them came up with an even better idea the other day.
Well, isn't it great when you can get them engaged in it, and then the good ideas come from them, not you, and then you're just going, "Great." You can then go away for the whole year because they're now coming up with the good ideas better than you can.
My plan is next year depends on what happens with COVID, but is to leave at least by April, and then I want to spend 18 months sailing my boat from Europe back to Australia.
Yeah, nice. That would just be fantastic. So what would you tell your young self 20, 30 years ago, if you could talk to yourself now, but that young, what would you say that you should be doing right now? Don't hesitate.
Hire good people. If you've got someone that doesn't fit in and it just isn't the right culture, change it. It's like cancer.
So when you find good people, how can you, like, if someone's listening to this right now and they're saying, well, how do you find good people? How do you determine a good person from a bad person? What are the criteria, some of the just quick things that you use?
It is time with them as well, if you understand. But I mean, as long as they're honest and upfront, and most people can learn, and they're willing to learn is a big thing.
Okay,
if they're not willing to learn, that is a big thing. I mean, it's not everyone's going to get on with everyone.
Yep.
But as long as people are a little bit adaptable and willing to learn, I think they generally fit in here. I've got a total in the kitchen maker. There's 12 of us, and in the spray shop there's 4 at the moment. We're starting a new person next week.
Yep.
And in the kitchen maker we're starting one more in another week and a half's time.
Right.
So
you've been able to get yourself out of the business so that you can work on the business.
Yep.
What do you think the secret to that is? Like, most business owners will say, well, I couldn't leave for 2 weeks without the business collapsing.
Documentation and systems, and having a great team, which I can say we've got a great team. But mainly, and systems is that everything's got to be documented. Like, because if everyone does everything the same way and does their part, you don't have a problem. Having staff buy-in is another huge part of that, and also being accountable, but letting everyone know that they pay their own wages. Like, they've got to make however many draws in an hour to pay their $35 an hour they're getting, or whatever they're getting an hour. If they don't make so many draws, there's not enough money to pay them at the end of it. And the staff have got to understand that.
Yeah, so you've got targets, really clear targets for them to achieve.
Definitely. We have one other big thing is scheduling. Like, if someone asked me a few months ago, I think we could have better technology for scheduling than we're using, but as far as scheduling goes, we do a good job of planning out. I can tell you where we'll be in 6-8 weeks' time, what everyone's doing. I mean, occasionally we get behind, but at least we know we're behind. When I was just working with myself and Justin, that's my first employee, I wasn't doing it to start with, and I used to work Saturdays every weekend. I'd work every Saturday, and sometimes I'd even be there on Sundays. I started doing a schedule. All I did was have a piece of paper with 5 columns on it, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I write down what we had to do every day. Suddenly I wasn't working on the Saturdays because I knew when everything had to be finished by. Yeah. I used to use a whole A4 sheet of paper for 1 week. I used to just write down every day, and then I'd have up to 6 bits of paper on my desk. It was a silly way of doing it, but it worked because we stopped working Saturdays. And for some reason, at some stage, I stopped doing it. Sure enough, within a month, I was working back on Saturdays. And
Everything fell off the rails.
Everything fell off the rails for probably 6 to 9 months. And then I went, Farrah, I've got to start doing that schedule again. And when I did it again, life was easy. So if you don't know what you've got coming up and when you've got to have it done by, you're in big trouble. Because you've got no set thing. I've got a guy that used to work for me, and he was doing exactly the same mistakes that I made. And I talk to him quite often, and because you learn. I believe another thing is you learn a lot by teaching others and telling others your story. But, you know, and I said to him, mate, go home tonight, write down a big list of your jobs and write next to how many hours you've roughly got to do for that student. It can be 10% out on everything, but I said, at least you're setting yourself a target.
Yeah.
At the moment, you've got no idea when you've got everything finished by. I said, if I said to him now, I want 2 kitchens made, when could you have them ready? He goes, maybe about 8 weeks. I said, are you sure about that? And he goes, I don't really know. And, you know, that's such a big important part of what we do. It can be simple, write it down, or, you know, of course, there's better programs to do it on these days.
Yeah. I was really excited to hear something you said earlier, which is you've read some books on lean, which is one of the first sort of higher level journey starting places for a lot of people in your position. The cool thing is that if you stay on that journey, not only will you learn scheduling and higher level systems, but you'll also look into not only knowing when a job has to be finished by, but one of the things that we see clients getting that big aha moment in is, when do you actually start the job? That's probably the most important date, right? Is because often when it's finished by, but most people, because they don't have scheduling, don't know actually when to start it. So they either start it too late or they start it too soon, which is both bad things, right? Because you start too late, you got to put more effort in to get it done. Or you start too soon, you just stop. So scheduling is such an important thing.
I really agree with what you said. Then, like, we had our schedule filled up, and I'm like, regular builder comes to me and says, "Oh, can you fit this house in? We need it started in, you need to be on site in 8 weeks."
Yeah.
And I went, there's a chance that this is going to move. So I went back. This is going to move. This is going to move, maybe. So I said, give me 10 weeks, and I'll have it done. And I've managed, and I reckon I will actually get it in the 8 weeks. But
it is interesting. We talk to a lot of businesses, and most people meet their delivery dates. That's not really the challenge. The challenge is, did you do it in the allotted time that you should have done it in, or was there a ton of overtime and a ton of extra people involved in it to meet that date? And often there is, right? Because scheduling, we didn't start at the right time, or we didn't promise the right date because the material couldn't got here on time. Whatever those things are.
That's so true. Like, when we do our estimating, a big part of it is that comes out. We have a summary sheet in our estimates that says how many factory hours we've got.
Yeah.
And how many site hours we've got. Because without that, and also at the end, the boys fill out we've got an online app. It's something time capture, and we just put our, hours into that.
Yeah.
And then it downloads a cost out of MyOb, and it all calculates up whether we did good or bad on that job. But having those hours allotted, we can then populate the schedule. But without how long a job's going to take before you start it, you can't do a schedule.
That's right, because the schedule is totally reliant on time. And if you haven't got that, but also too, it's so true what you say, that people, if they don't have that time in front of them, the story of the 4-minute mile,
yeah,
we measured how long it took a guy to run a mile. If we didn't ever do that, it'd just be some individual running around a park. We wouldn't care.
No, that's exactly right. It's like, if you give them, 3 days to do a 2-day job, how long are we going to take?
It's going to take 3 days. That's Parkinson's law. That's so true.
And
the other cool thing about the guy running the 4-minute mile, I just learned this the other day, that the interesting thing that happened is that after we cracked that 4-minute mile, all kinds of other people cracked it as well. But prior to that, nobody had. So as soon as people can see and truly believe that it's possible, they will achieve it. So that's what that target gives. This kitchen should be done in, we should assemble this job in 4 hours. No way we can do that, mate. Not possible. They do it, and all of a sudden it's possible.
Well, that's exactly right. But you've got to that's another big thing with staff. You've got to set achievable targets. Like, one thing I had to get over was that, like, I'd work like crazy, and sure, I'd get an install done in a day or whatever, but can I expect my staff to do that 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah,
and that's one big thing I had to get over. So it's got to be realistic expectations for yourself and for your staff.
Yeah.
Like, if I go out installing now, I make sure that I take a couple more extra deep breaths and just go, I'm just going to take it, that I've got a bit more time than normal, because I start rushing, and then I can't expect the guys to do that all day, every day.
Yeah. It's so true. You gotta, pace your business to your best average person, not your best person.
That is so true. That's a really good saying, Bruce.
Yeah. We never, you
write
never
that down.
Yeah. Your best average person. You want everybody, you want a team of average because you're never going to get a team of champions.
No, that's right. You're never going to have a team of rock stars.
Yeah. Hopefully not. The teams that do, I don't know. I played sports most of my life too. And I, you can look back and say the teams where we had all these superstars on the team, there was one season we didn't lose a regular season game, but then we got into the finals. We lost the finals because we didn't know, the champions didn't know how to work together. They were just individual champions. 2 seasons later, we had a team full of very average people. We believed we could win. We did. We won a championship. That's very similar in business,
I take that off one of my good friends. They got a second in a world championship in sailing. This is a few years ago. And then the bowman was the sort of one that took the boat, care of the boat work, and made sure the boat was all perfect and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, they stopped for a much better sailing bowman. The next year they didn't even get in the top 10 in the worlds.
Yeah, no buy-in.
Yeah, there just wasn't. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't enough buy-in.
Yeah.
And they didn't work together as well. It's not all about, you're only as good as how you mesh together too.
Yeah. Teams are teams, no matter where you are. Well, this is really good. I'm really glad we had this chat. So I know that you're also really passionate about the industry and trying to get this industry up to those sort of next levels. What are the sort of things that you'd like to see this industry doing that they're not doing right now? What are some of those hit points for you?
Training new people.
So you think we need to do more training? Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Like I do not believe that, the old saying, the old tradesman, when we were an apprentice, we had to work crazy hours, we had to work, like this. I did all that, and I got told the same when I was coming through, the same thing. And I've had a few guys that will do whatever it takes to get the job done when we have to.
Yeah.
And then, it's not, I hate that saying, kids these days.
These days, yeah.
It's not true. It's how we mentor them and how we teach them and how
every generation seems to say that.
Yeah. I really don't want the trade skills to get lost. Like a lot of skills do get lost with a computer router, but computers, but we've all got I really think the TAFE system is really outdated as well. Like my dad's 75 this year, and his first project at TAFE was to make an oilstone box with a hand router. What's the first cabinet makers? My dad was a carpenter, but anyway, what was the first job that my last apprentice did that went to TAFE? They made an oilstone box with a hand router. Like, if we haven't evolved in that time, sure, it teaches them good hand skills and stuff, but do we need to use those tools these days? The answer is no. Why don't we, someone saying we shouldn't, ranting on the internet the other day saying that, the CNCs have killed the industry and, it's all losing their skills because we've got a panel saw. I mean, go back to framing up kitchens out of 2x1. Like, it's never going to happen.
No.
So we've got to move with the times, but, I think the training for the apprentices is really bad. Like, it's based on the weakest student from school, the TAFE courses and that, and it needs to be stepped up a bit if they want people to take it seriously, especially with our trade. Like, it's just, it's based very low.
It's so true.
Why aren't we teaching design and a little bit of business management? Because if they don't understand that they've got to pay their own wages, how are they going to understand they have to put in at work?
Yeah. So what, by the way, I like your analogy there about, training. What are we training them in? Because I often use the analogy about the CNC killing the industry. They said that about that electric router thing that came out about 100 years ago when the guy had the hand trencher on the bench going, that electric router thing, that'll never work. And he's going like a crazy man with the hand trencher. That electric router thing, you plug it into a wall, that'll never work. That'll never take off. It was the same conversation about CNC machines, right? It's just the evolving industry. It's never stopped evolving. And the people that sort of, like you say, stay in tune with what's the next thing and evolve with that are the ones that usually do quite well. People sometimes get stuck and say, well, we're going to keep doing it the way we've done it, right?
No, I mean, you've got to evolve. That's one thing I really take my hat off to my father. He always evolved. He got a point-to-point router before the flatbed routers were out.
Yes.
He really evolved with things. He got a beam saw after cutting for years on panel saws.
Yeah.
And then, as he got older, he didn't keep up the evolution. But even a guy worked there for 9 years, and he went away for 16 years, and he came back, and he said, one of the reasons I come back is, he said, because you're always changing and improving things here.
Looking at new things.
Said,
that's keeping your people in tune.
Keeping it fresh too.
If you were to talk to your typical joinery business right now, and you'd talk to a lot of them, what message would you give to them that they probably need to take on board? And because you've kind of achieved what a lot of people say is the unachievable. You've got this business that you don't have to be in all the time. You're off living your life. You're doing wonderful things. You actually have the life that you wanted the business to give you in the first place. I'm assuming when you started this business back in 2003, you must have had some idea what you wanted the business to give you back. And if you didn't, you've probably redefined that over the years, because you are getting it right now. But a lot of people never get to that stage. What would you say to those people right now to make that transition into that pathway?
If you've got to be in your business every day, it's a job. It's not a business. And biggest thing is systems. Is you've got to, and setting expectations. If you expect nothing from people, you'll get nothing. If you hand feed them every day, they're going to expect to get hand fed every day. Like I said to my staff the first time I went away, I said, look, I said, I don't have the money to pay for you. The business has got to generate the money to pay you guys. And by doing your work and doing a good job every day, you're going to generate enough money. And another big one is scheduling. So the scheduling, the systems, and staff buy-in. An interesting thing we did recently was we did the SWOT analysis with everyone.
Yep.
And I still haven't, I've only done this in the last few weeks, so I haven't seen the benefits of it. I haven't had a chance to implement many things of it, but I've implemented a few little ones. And that's a big thing, because the staff you're asking them what's wrong. Like, I'm not working down on the floor every day, so, I don't see what's coming in from other people, what they're doing wrong in the computer, everything. So, but just systems, and being able to stand back and go, like, I remember the first time that I thought, I'm going to get to where I want to be able to travel and do what I want to do, because a $30,000 check turned up in the mailbox and I didn't even know about the job, because I let someone else do it.
Yeah.
I remember opening the mailbox that day. It was probably 9 years ago now, because Dave's been with me just over 10 years. And and it was
back when there was checks.
Yeah, back then there was checks. Would you believe we got a check 3 weeks ago? But anyway,
that's pretty
rare. That was the first one in a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm just thinking, I opened it up and I was just like, whoa. And I'm like, actually, this is going to work. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. I am going to be able to, get out and do stuff and travel again. And before my manager, David, started, I said, I do like to travel a lot, but I didn't think it would take me 7 years of him being here before I could have I had 9 months off. I was hoping to get quicker than that.
Yeah.
But, don't be in too much of a rush to do anything either. I think that's a big one. Like, it does take time. You're better off to chip away instead of, I think you're better off just to chip away at it and keep improving and trying to do it in everything in one fell swoop.
Make sure everybody's on the same page before you make that step, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I did a, simple change on the factory floor and not everyone liked it straight away. And then I'm like, I thought about it, I stood back and I'm like, I've got a majority. I've probably got 7 out of 10 that want to do it, so I'm going to do it. But it was harder to do it than having everyone buy into it in the first place. But if I had less than 50%, I probably I would have done it, but in a slower format.
Well, the cool thing is you've now demonstrated that doing something is either going to produce a good result or a bad result, but both of those results are good, because if it's bad, we learn not to do that. But if it's good, we've learned something new. But hopefully,
you learn a lot by your mistakes, don't you?
Well, you don't learn from anything other than your mistakes. Otherwise, we would never have started walking as humans. You fall over too many times, and if you give up, you'd never learn to walk.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yep.
And the same with joinery. If you don't have a go, and if you don't have a go, you're never going to have a go at anything. But with with a business, especially once you get a little bit bigger, don't be scared to go back. Like I came home after 9 months away, and I basically only came home because I didn't feel I was ready to cross the Atlantic in my boat, and it was getting cold in Europe. So I thought I might as well go back to Sydney. And I came home and worked on the floor for 3 months, and it was one of the best experiences. Like for the first 2 days, soon you guys didn't even know who I was. And it was like Undercover Boss. I never thought I'd pull it off, but I got 2 days out of it, and the third morning I fired someone. Anyway.
That's a cultural discovery, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was really good because I was just being a tradesman, and I'm like, we've changed a lot of things since those, just little things since those 3 months, which if I didn't go back to it, I would have never seen it, because I hadn't worked on the tools full time for probably 7 or 8 years. And I always do a little bit, but I'd always done less and less. And, in case someone would have a sick day or there's a trickier job, I might go and give them a hand, but I'd never done a full job in a long time.
Yeah.
And it was so good to do something from start to finish. And I really encourage every business owner to go out, and on the occasional install or go out in the factory and make a whole job.
Yeah.
It might only be a 900 watt vanity, but do the whole thing, not just part of it.
Yeah. In lean terms, we call that going to the gemba, going to the source.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Get in there, get your hands dirty. Really good. So this is really, really helpful. I think that you're going to give a lot of people some inspiration. There are people obviously in our network that want to hear this. What I love about what you've done is you've actually created a profitable investment from your business. And of course, an investment is something that you don't actually have to physically do anything for. You've just invested and it gives you back some wealth. And I think that business has to be like that, because you've got so much risk and so much investment that if it's not giving you something back, like you said earlier, you might as well get a job and not have that risk.
Well, one of the things is, like, I get really fired up about, I hear staff not getting paid their super, stuff like that. It's because their old business owners are either ripping off the system or they're not charging enough. And most of the time, it's they're not charging enough to run a successful business. And if you can't charge enough to run a successful business, get out.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to manage the cash, right? And it just gets money in, money out, money in, money out, and they don't allocate it correctly. So often that's, honest mistakes, but that doesn't mean that you've got the money to then pay those things that you should have. And sometimes that ends badly. You're right.
One of the other big things about being able to do it is I have my bullets backed off. My book's balanced every week. At the moment, actually, my bookkeeper got a cat attacked her of all things and tore her hand up really badly. So she had a week and a half off. And I'm itching. I want to know my numbers.
Where are we at?
Yeah.
I mean, that's next level stuff, really, isn't it? Most people, we insist on having at least a monthly reconciliation, but you're weekly.
Yeah, I really like it. It's one thing my bookkeeper says she really likes it too, because she said it's done. It's not a big job at the end of the month. She said every week it's quite a small job.
Yeah, I guess if you're doing it the way that it should be done, then it's always there anyway, really, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Like I have, for the 2 businesses, plus I rent out the factories, and I rent them to myself anyway, and 3 other companies too. So that's sort of another set of books. I basically have 3 sets of books, and my mother does 1 day a week, and a bookkeeper does probably about 12 hours a week to sort out that. But it's fantastic always just knowing, and I can go and look at receivables and know what's paid to us, what's owed to us and what we owe every, if it's not on Wednesday, I have it by Sunday evening at the worst if, she's fallen behind. But
so it sounds to me like this is something else really, you would say to someone in the industry is know your numbers, right? Because if you don't know your numbers, you kind of don't know your business, do you?
No, that's so true. I don't want to put, because if one of my friends, good friend of mine who bought my parents' business, I won't say his name out, but he said to me after 12 months, he goes, "Oh, don't worry about the numbers. That's, his wife's problem." And I drilled him so badly. I said, "You've got to know your numbers," because I said, there's no point you coming to work every day, working 12 to 15 hours a day. And I said, don't know if you're going to get rewarded or not.
It's so true.
And, and if your numbers aren't improving, you've got to make them improve by making changes in what you're doing, because 9 times out of 10, they're straight manufacturing. That's a cut the size. So they are very limited by price as well compared to what we're doing, because, we're selling custom made stuff. It's, I said, you've really got to know whether you're making money or not.
Well, we often compare businesses that don't know their numbers to, it's like driving down the road in your car without your dashboard working.
It's exactly, that is a great analogy. I've heard you use that because I have listened to you a fair bit, and it is so true. Like if you don't, you're flying blind.
You're flying blind. It's exactly what you're doing. You have no idea what's going on. But it is that old analogy in business, right? Well, if we've got work coming in, we must be okay.
I've got a good friend of mine that came and worked for me during the GFC because he got made redundant from he was a project manager, and he came and worked for me for a few months. He said, mate, you know what you're in the business of? And I said, kitchens. He goes, no, you're in the business of making money. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I did definitely change my view on things. I don't like to say that in a cruel way, but we're here to make money and have a good lifestyle.
Yeah, money has to be there. Otherwise you can't do the stuff you want to do, right? I
That's exactly right.
Money has to be a result of what we do. But I think you've actually highlighted why you do what you do. You've got this goal to live a certain life a certain way, and everybody should have that. If you're going to put up the enormous risk that you've put up to have a business, you should at least get that back. We're not Richard Branson wealthy for sure, but you should get the wealth that you want from your business. And there's no reason you couldn't be Richard Branson wealthy. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing that.
No, I totally agree with that. One of the big things is that I think so many people get, it's interesting with Facebook and, the Cabinet Makers Australia page. There's so many people that just love the industry, but I really hope that they get their lifestyle out of it they should be getting, not just because they love being a tradesman. I think so many people don't. There are a few there that I know that do.
Yeah.
But, know your worth in the industry is a big thing.
It's one of our biggest hurdles, quite frankly, is, we get inquiries every week. And there's just this unfortunate belief in the industry that I'm going to buy myself a job. This business will never make $1 million. You hear that a lot. Like never make $1 million. Well, why not? Why? It's almost like, I think that, I have a theory that our industry is filled with really nice guys. That's why we let our customers walk all over us so often, whereas most industries don't. Try and tell the windows and doors company that you're going to pay late. No, they'll just cut you off. So
is one, mate, and I've been going, just over 17 years, and I've had less than $12,000 in bad debts. And a couple of things that I walked away from, I still call them bad debts because you
know them.
Yeah, it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Someone they were being unreasonable or whatever, but don't let people take the piss out of you.
Yeah. And I think there's so many people in this industry that just because of our nice nature, we think that if we do make a lot of money, other people are going to think we're greedy or there's something bad about us. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that everybody's going, well, you deserve it. You should be making, like everybody else has a different view to what we think. So it is a sort of a mindset hurdle that a lot of people have to get over, that it's okay if you're gaining wealth from running a joinery business because you deserve it. Why else would you work 80 hours a week? What would be the reason for doing that? You're not having any fun.
I've got a friend of mine that, owned a glass splashback business, and he's retired and, did fantastic. The company's now publicly listed.
Yeah.
How many people do that? Because that's right in our industry. And, and he was very system orientated. He made sure he got paid. He just did
did the basics right, and away you go.
He did the basics right, and then when he got the basics right, he expanded.
Yeah.
And then he got the basics right again, expanded. I think that's really one thing with a bit of growth. If you go a little bit, then you've got to plateau a bit, then you go again.
Yeah.
Because you've got to make sure you get the basics right. Don't forget the little bits.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. So you've got 2 businesses. Let's just talk really quickly about those businesses. And if anybody's listening to this and they'd like to contact you, how do they get a hold of you for the kitchen maker, first of all?
Got the website, thekitchenmaker.com.au.
Yep.
And then Total Polyurethane, which is totalpolyurethane.com.au.
Yep.
And, you know, with the Kitchen Maker, one big thing is we do a lot more than just kitchens. We do full house fit outs. Yep. And that's something I might have chosen the wrong name a long time ago. But that's
pigeonholed yourself.
Yeah, I've got the TKM Interiors name registered as well, but we definitely do. We do high-end custom fit outs.
Yep.
And with the spray painting, we do anything from staining veneer to metallic finishes. We even paint for a few sign writers.
Nice.
And down to, you know, doing the normal shaker style doors. And
yep.
Shane's my partner in the spray shop's a French polisher by trade, and he's very experienced, and he's got a really good team of guys now.
Fantastic.
And it works nice.
Well, this has been great. I love hearing your story. I learn a little bit more about you every time we talk, and maybe one of these days we'll get to ski together. I grew up skiing in Canada, so that's haven't done much of that lately, but yeah, it's certainly a great passion to have.
Yeah, no, I don't normally ski in Australia, but I'm getting a bit itchy, so I'm going down for a few days next week.
Yeah.
And I had no problem booking in 4 days away.
Yeah, absolutely.
From work.
And as I understand it, you actually did get COVID at one point. So what can you tell us about that? What was your experience there?
Everyone who says it's a cold, please give me a call. I didn't even really know I had it. I was in Switzerland, and what happened is all the Italian ski resorts closed because, you know, it came from China through to Italy through the fashion parades. And then, so all they closed and they came to Switzerland. We were standing in these big, you know, cabins that go up the hill, hold 120 people, and you're standing there for 10 minutes. So if one person's got COVID, pretty much everyone in that little box is going to go with it. Yeah, and then I was sick for about half a day. I had a slight temperature, but that same day I climbed up over a glacier. It was a 5.5 hour hike with skis on my feet through, you know, knee-deep snow. It was someone told us it was going to take 3 hours, and we walked in a blizzard. It took us 5.5 hours, and I'm sure that's the day that first symptoms came on. But I wasn't actually sick when I got it. I actually rang the COVID hotline when I came back to Sydney because I did the right things. I isolated and everything. I rang them after a week of being home and thought maybe I should get tested. And they said, "Oh, you don't have enough symptoms." So I rang my GP and he said, "Look," he said, "I'm not sure." He said, "You've come from a hot spot, go and get tested." So I did. Sure enough, I had it.
Yeah.
But what was bad after was I had bad fatigue. So they call it post-fire fatigue, and it's very much the same symptoms as chronic fatigue.
Right.
By 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I felt sick and just wanted to go to bed, but you go to bed and you couldn't sleep.
Right.
So, and that lasted for 8 to 10 weeks. And I had it in March, and I still don't think I'm 100% over it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you definitely, everyone, please look after yourself and follow what they're saying because, yeah, no, you don't want it. Yeah. Especially if you're a little bit older or got any underlying health conditions. Like, I think I was pretty lucky. I'd probably done 70 or 80 days skiing, so I was reasonably fit at the time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so it didn't hit me too bad, but yeah, no, you don't want it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you've recovered and you're well, because that's got to be a bit scary. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, awesome story. Thanks for doing this. Again, if anybody
pleasure.
Wants to contact Darren, please feel free to do that. And thanks for jumping into our podcast. We've got lots of people that are going to benefit from your story, and I'm inspired by what you're doing. So let's stay in touch.
Sounds good, and thanks for giving us the opportunity. It's been fun. I wouldn't say I'm the best public speaker, but I'm trying to learn how to do it. So
you've done great. Yeah, you've done fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the chat, Darren. Have a great day. We'll chat soon.
You too. Cheers, Chris.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.